All right, welcome again to season 6 of Soccer Over Gotham. Come a long way, and we're still here. Tonight, we're going to do a breakdown of the birth of a new era of Boston women's soccer and the voices behind the Boston legacy coverage. Courtney and Andy of the Swan Dive, welcome you two to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for
Thanks,
having us.
Gary.
Indeed. So this is a geographical and cultural collision. Yankees and Red Sox, Giants and Patriots, Knicks and Celtics for over a
Yep.
century. And now Gotham and Boston Legacy. Excited about this? How are you guys excited about it?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Andy.
Courtney.
I think it's a great way to start the season, to be honest. I mean,
Mhm.
I think the fact that not legacy, that rivalry can continue on again to a new sport, a new team. And I think, again, what a good way to open the season with that kind of rivalry clash. I think it's going to be hopefully a good game, but a good way to kind of kick things off for the team with that kind of rivalry match.
Yeah. It should be exciting. Obviously, you guys are home for that. Gotham does have a way of taking the crowd out of games. Hopefully, it's an exciting game, but sometimes Gotham is not the most fun opponent to play away. So tell us about your podcast and why would you do such a thing? It's only crazy people do podcasts.
Go ahead, Andy. I'll let you take that one because you're the one who kind of like put out the call to I want to do this. So.
Yeah, I kind of had an idea for a name of a podcast before I had anything else. I just woke
Gotcha.
up one morning with the Swan Dive in my head. I'm like, oh my god, it's perfect. Now I need to make a podcast to fit the title. But no, it's kind of loosely inspired by some other podcasts that I've listened to. I'm wearing a Wolverhampton Wanderers shirt. There's a couple different fan shows that I listen to for that club over in England, where basically the format is they have a couple of hosts who are there most weeks, and they have sort of a rotating stable of fans that come into the third and fourth seats of the podcast and just kind of chat about the team. Really, I mean, we're not trying to break any news. We're not doing like a journalistic thing. We're just trying to hang out and talk about our favorite soccer team.
And so going back, so let's take a trip back in time a little bit. So the Boston Breakers are part of the legacy of the NWSL. And up until 2018, rolling along, nothing was good for the NWSL. Like nothing was going well. And then the Breakers just like unceremoniously folded right before the 2018 season. And then they did a dispersal draft because they already drafted players. They were ready to go. Then that's how Gotham FC got Savannah McCaskill in the beginning. But some of those teams, like I don't know if people recognize like how stacked some of those teams were for the Boston Breakers. They were very exciting. Rose Lavelle, you had I think Kay Stengel. I think did McCall Zerboni also play for the Breakers? I don't know, but you got tons of talent that came out of there. Mitch Purse, Ifiana Manu, just so many talented players coming through the Breakers. Just were you guys fans of the Breakers at the time, or was that not on your radar?
Well, so my just real quickly, like my women's soccer history kind of picked up at like I watched the 99 World Cup, of course.
Hmm.
But then I didn't really start following professional league until unfortunately basically when the WPS folded. It was like after the 2011 Women's World Cup, I watched all that and was like, "Oh, there's a professional league. Cool." So I kind of missed the early iteration of Breakers, and then when the NWSL came around, I was actually living in upstate New York. I call myself a retired women's soccer journalist. I used to cover the Flash when they were
Oh,
still up there before they became the Courage. So I was around for the early NWSL, but not really the Breakers because I didn't live there. I did watch all the games though as a hardcore, born and bred Boston, Massachusetts girl. So, I follow the Boston teams regardless of where I live. So not as closely as I probably followed other teams, but certainly tried to keep an eye on them as much as I could back in the early days of the league.
yeah. What about you, Andy?
I have basically no background in women's soccer at all. This
Okay.
is kind of my entry point to not the sport in general, but specifically like NWSL. I've been watching soccer sort of casually for most of my life, but I really kind of dove in. I got kind of addicted to Football Manager during the pandemic, which I'm sure is a familiar story to a lot of people. And you know, from there it kind of snowballed. I have always wanted to sort of, you know, one of the things that everyone loves to do in Football Manager is you take a team that's from some tiny village in England and you bring them all the way up to the Premier League. And so I kind of wanted that local feeling of those small clubs. And obviously NWSL is a gigantic league compared to the National League South or whatever you get in England. But just to have a team sort of in my backyard coming in, it's just really exciting. And yeah, I try to bring sort of that like newcomer perspective to things on the show. I don't profess to be an expert on anything really, but especially
Mhm.
not women's soccer.
Yeah, but you get to follow a team that's from the ground up, which is I guess gotta be pretty exciting to you.
Yeah, exactly. To get in on the ground floor, I feel like, you know, you join up with a team that's been around for, you know, a century plus or whatever in England. You feel like you're missing a lot of the history and the culture, but we get the chance to build that now in Boston. We
Mhm.
have, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, we have the legacy of the Breakers in Boston. But to have a fully new organization being built from the ground up is a really exciting opportunity as a fan.
Yeah. And as you guys are getting started and getting going, you're interacting with the fans more. How has that women's soccer culture been since the Breakers left? I mean, were fans just waiting for this and just hanging around? And it's like this reinvigorated the women's soccer scene. Like, how do you feel the energy is around this team?
That's been my experience going to
Yeah.
events. And, you know, like I said, I wasn't really part of the previous iterations here, but like it feels like there's been like a deep thirst that is being quenched by this team coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You can really feel, again, going to different events or the supporter group or just events that are being held by the team and things like that. You can really tell because there really hasn't been anything. I mean, if you're just a soccer fan in general, men's or women's, the Revolution or of course you can go see them. But they're really, as far as like women's soccer, people have definitely been waiting for this for a very long time, and you can tell whether it's new fans or there. I know a lot of people who have been around since the Breakers fold and have just kind of been biding time of, I hope we get a team again someday, and we're finally here and getting really close to the season starting.
And Boston obviously is a very crowded sports market. Obviously, we are from the New York, New Jersey region. There's competition for every dollar that you have as far as your
Mhm.
entertainment. Where does where do you think the Boston legacy fits in that like hierarchy of fandoms that are there?
It's it's hard. I said this I think somewhere else, but it's hard to kind of judge. Obviously you have the major men's sports, baseball, football, basketball, hockey,
Mm.
those are always kind of going to be the top tier, but I want to say right now is a great time for the legacy to be coming along. We just got the fleet for the PWHL is in its second or third season I think, and they're getting close to selling out a couple games that they have at you know the Garden, the big
I think they
arena
did sell out the Garden.
where the men play. So they're selling out the same arenas as the men. We have the Connecticut Sun, the women, the WNBA team that is also again having games at the big same arena that the men play. They just bought team Boston just got awarded one of the first women's professional baseball teams. So I think it's like a great time for it. Obviously it's not necessarily quite on the same level regularly as the main sport on the men's side, but I think this is a really great time. We're seeing a rise in like attendance and popularity in women's sports. I think it's a great time for the legacy to be coming in and starting up.
Yeah. And with that rise of interest in the sport, the latest on the stadium issue, just so we can get a base of where it's like, is there?
So for 2026, there will be 8 home games at Gillette Stadium,
Gotcha.
which is similar to Gotham, where it's not actually in the city that they claim to be from.
Mhm.
So it's about 40-ish minutes south of Boston. And then the other 7 home games are going to be played just outside of Providence, Rhode Island, in Pawtucket, which is even further south of Boston, obviously. So not a great situation for 2026. But one thing just to add on to what Courtney said real quick is this will be Boston's only soccer team once White Stadium does open, hopefully in 2027, because the Revolution play in the same stadium the Patriots do, Gillette Stadium, down in the South. So I think a lot of the sort of hunger for soccer within the actual city of Boston will end up being sated by the legacy being there. I think a lot of people will be sort of gender agnostic when it comes to soccer and just want to see people kick a ball into a goal.
And like, how do you feel like? Do you get any sense of like how many season ticket packages they've sold? I mean, because it's gonna be hard to judge when you're playing in different stadiums and things like that.
The only numbers we've seen so far are for the home opener. The club recently announced yesterday, maybe the day before,
Day before.
that they had sold 20,000 seats to the opening day, which is roughly double what White Stadium will hold once that's
Yeah,
open. It will also not look very full in Gillette with only
right.
20,000 people there. That would like roughly 75-80% fill the lower bowl, that 20,000 number.
Hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
a big number. It's an exciting number, but it's not
It
going to
is.
look big or exciting on TV, unfortunately.
And I think as far as like, yeah, they haven't really announced really anything about season ticket memberships or those kind of numbers. But I mean, like Andy said, 20,000 for the home opener is great. It's actually where they're going to play in Pawtucket also is about the same size as it's going to be White Stadium. So it's about 10, 11,000. So I think, you have your first game where the capacity is more than you can actually hold at your, permanent stadium and your alternative site stadium. So I think that that's really promising. And I think, you know, having such a big number for the home opener, you hope that if some of those people aren't season ticket members, they have a positive enough experience that at that first game that makes them, maybe not want to become season ticket members, but maybe buy like a multi-game package or at least come to more games than they thought they were going to come to. I made a joke the other day when they announced that New Kids on the Block were going to be like there
Oh,
doing
yeah,
the
I saw
halftime
that.
performance. I said, you know what? I said, this is my call to action for people. I said, if you came, and the comments on their posts were like New Kids on the Block fans of how do I get a ticket? How do I buy tickets? And I was like, you know what? If people come for the New Kids on the Block concert and end up liking the soccer game and want to come to another game, I think that that's great. We welcome you. Come on down. Let's go.
Yeah, you just got to get in the door once. That's it.
Yeah, so
That's
that's
all it takes.
promising. Having at least 20,000, and I think that will probably go up a little bit more before the actual game for the home opener. I think is how it looks on TV in the stadium, regardless. I think is great.
And so we're talking about building a team from the ground up, and this is a unique situation because there's no expansion draft, there's no draft itself. So it's just a completely different being able to go out in that market, build your team from scratch. So let's talk a little bit about the coaching, the coaches. So who's the coach for this season, and what do you feel like their coaching philosophy might look like on the field?
So
Go ahead,
the
Andy.
head coach is Filipa Patau. She's Portuguese. She was previously the head coach at Benfica.
Hmm.
Um, they were excellent under
Yeah,
her. I mean,
she's
they're
good.
obviously one of the biggest teams in Portugal, on both sides, men's
Mhm.
and women's. But she got them to a quarterfinal, I believe, in the Champions League,
Hmm.
where they punched above their weight class in Europe with her at the helm. Um, in terms of style, she seems kind of conventionally Portuguese. We saw a lot of three at the back, a lot of possession, a lot of I hesitate to use the word reliance, but a lot of making room for sort of individual brilliance, which I think is kind of a hallmark of the Portuguese style from what I've seen. And as a Wolves fan, I have a lot of experience with Portuguese players and coaches, but that seems to be sort of the style over there is three at the back and get out of the way for the exciting forwards to do their thing. And I think that's what we're expecting to see from her at the Legacy. We've seen a lot of four at the back in preseason from the drips and drabs of information we've been getting.
We
So we're
think.
not fully sure exactly what's going to happen, but that's sort of where we're at.
And like, if you were to define, I guess, what your feel is on like a starting 11? Do you have an idea of who's going to be starting for this team?
I mean, I'll give you my brief. So Andy's really like the guy. You talk about the podcast, Andy. I always tell him like the stat guy because he's on like
Okay.
Font Mob or Sofa, whatever it's called,
Yeah.
and he's got all those kind. And I'm like, here's my thoughts on my just vibes and what information I know about the players just from reading and watching prior games. We've been trying to put together a starting 11 for like weeks now, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you that Casey Murphy's going to start day one. Casey Murphy's going to start in
Yeah.
goal, and I'm pretty sure Amanda Gutierrez is going to be a starter and be on the field up top. And other than that, I'm going to suggest maybe Ella Stevens will be in the starting lineup also somewhere. And then for me, other than that, I personally will kick it over to Andy because that's what I got. I got 3 players for us all
Yeah,
that I'm confident for.
it's a weird one because, like I mentioned, we've seen a lot of 4 at the back from the like I say a lot. The 2 preseason game rosters, starting lineups rather, that we've seen appeared to be 4 at the back based on personnel. There's like no true right back on the roster. We think Bianca St. George might be the right back. It's sort of like any way you line the team up, you end up with either 2 players for 3 positions or 4 players for 2 positions. So
Gotcha.
like there's kind of I've referred to it before on our show as the soup in the midfield. There's sort of like 4 or 5 midfielders, and you could pick any 2 or 3 of them at any given moment. And yeah, there's not a lot of NWSL experience on the roster, so we haven't seen most of these players play over here in this country, so we don't always know what to expect from them, and trying to put all of these things together is very difficult, but we'll find out one way or another in a couple weeks.
We also have like midfielders who can play defense and defenders who can play holding midfield, so that also kind of throws a mix into it. Like,
Yeah.
are you going to play everybody
Wingers
at
who
their
might be midfielders, defenders
Like-
who might be forwards.
right? Like, are you going to play? Is she going to play everybody at their true position as listed on the on the website on the roster, or are we going to see some people playing like secondary positions? It's all kind of a big
And we've definitely
unknown.
seen adaptability and versatility as big buzzwords, both from Philippa Patau in her initial like introductory sort of video that she did with the club. She talked about being chameleonic was the word that she used.
We love that word.
Yes, we're using that word all the time. But also Dome Gouache, the general manager who came over from Barcelona, with every signing he talks about, this is a defender who's good on the ball. This is an attacker who can defend from the front. So he's always talking about sort of these versatile players who overlap multiple roles. So I think we're going to see a lot of mixing and matching, and a lot of maybe the formation that you see on your FOTMob or your SofaScore app at the beginning of the game not really having a lot of bearing on what's actually happening on the pitch.
Gotcha. And like, what do you think? Maybe is this is your first season, new team, new put together. What's your realistic expectations for this season?
I'm so glad you asked that because we literally just talked about this like 2 days ago, like yesterday maybe.
Yeah.
I
Time
realistically
doesn't
will
mean
say, because Andy made me say an actual one, not a range, one position. He forced me to commit, and I said realistically, I think if they placed 12th, that would be great. Reasonable and great.
Yeah, and I more or less agreed with that. I think if you look at the sort of the NWSL table from last season and you look at some of the moves that have happened, you can pick 3, maybe 4 teams that the Legacy have a pretty good chance of at least contending with, if not finishing ahead of. There's maybe another 2 or 3 that if everything goes right, you could see the Legacy climb up the table. I don't think this is going to be a playoff team. I don't think the expectations are that high. I would be very happy with, like Courtney said, 11th, 12th, I think would be a great first season. Anything other than last, and I will be at least somewhat satisfied. If we're not at the very bottom of the table, you know what? That's not too bad. If we can finish ahead of Denver, that'd be great.
All right, and what's your thoughts going into this game against the champs in your first match? Get kind of thrown to the wolves a little bit.
Yeah, there's no there's nowhere to hide in this league, and that is being proved on day one. If we can make it entertaining, I'll be happy. If we get a goal and keep it within 1 or 2 goals, I think that would be a great result. like a 2-1, a 3-1 loss, I wouldn't be super disappointed with. I feel weird saying that, but like you're a brand new team going up against the champions. Like I'm not going to expect a win. A draw would be great. A close loss would be acceptable. Is kind of where I'm at.
I would love it if Ella Stevens scored a goal against Gotham. I'm just gonna say that. I would. It would make me happy. And then whatever else happened is fine.
if anyone, let it be her. Let it be her. But you also got Josephine Hasvo, who's a talented player. She's going to be a good player for the next 4 or 5 years. Just let her grow. I think she's going to be excellent in your midfield. Harvard graduate. We love our Harvard midfielders. So we will see you guys on March 14th, 12:30 p.m. at Gillette Stadium. I'm excited. You guys ready?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
we'll be there.
Yeah, with bells on and probably many layers of clothing.
At like 9:30 in the morning, tailgating. It's going to be great.
Breakfast tailgate.